Algebra 2, target 39. I can use the unit circle to evaluate trig functions for any number. Today the focus is going to be on general definitions and the unit circle definitions. Now, we can take any angle and find a trig function for it. Generally what we do, we draw our triangle in a circle. So here we got any old circle centered at the origin. The equation for a circle is x squared plus y squared equals the radius squared when it's centered at the origin. And so what we do, we draw a right triangle in the first quadrant. We got the angle there. The side opposite of the angle, notice how it's standing straight up. That is actually the y value because it goes from the x-axis up to the y coordinate of the point. The adjacent side, lying flat on the x-axis, is the x value because it goes out to the x coordinate of the point. And of course, the hypotenuse is the radius because it never changes as we go around a circle. Now the sine ratio, opposite over adjacent, ends up being y over r because it's the y value divided by the radius. And all the other trig functions fall into place too. Cosine adjacent over hypotenuse. Here's your adjacent. Your radius ends up being r, x over r. Tangent would be y over x, opposite over adjacent. That ends up being y over x. Make sure, again, x is not 0. And then all the other three are just flips. Y over r, we flip it to r over y. X over r flips to r over x for secant. And y over x flips to x over y for cotangent. Now, sometimes what we do is we put these into what's called the unit circle. Unit circle is just like any other circle, except the radius is 1. So the equation for a unit circle is x squared plus y squared equals 1. Let's do this problem first, I guess. Jumping a little bit ahead of myself. Let negative 4, 3 be a point on the terminal side of an angle. Evaluate to 6 trig functions. Now, we got the point x, y is negative 4, 3. X is negative 4. Y is 3. Those ends up being our adjacent and opposite sides. Equation for a circle, x squared plus y squared equals r squared. That ends up being the Pythagorean theorem. If you know your Pythagorean triples, you know that the radius here is 5. And so we can do our three main trig functions, the sine of theta. That'd be opposite over adjacent, or y opposite over hypotenuse, opposite over hypotenuse, or y over r, y over radius, so that's 3/5. Cosine of theta would be adjacent, which is x, over hypotenuse, which is radius, so negative 4 over 5. Notice there that that's negative value. That's fine. We can have negative trig when we're outside of the 90-degree angle. And tangent is opposite over adjacent. That ends up being y over x, 3 over negative 4. The other three trig functions, quite simply, we flip the first three. So cosecant would be 5/3, secant would be negative 5/4, and cotangent would be negative 4/3. So those are your 6 main trig functions. We can get the unit circle. This makes it easier because in the unit circle, x squared plus y squared equals 1 squared. All of the trig definitions that have a radius, the radius is replaced with 1. So sine, which was y over r, now the sine in the unit circle is just y. Cosine in the unit circle is just x. So those simplify and make it easier to do. So now we can do those undefined ones. Or we can do, just knowing the coordinate, we can do all 6 trig ratios. So here we have a 270-degree angle, and we want to find the 6 trig ratios. Now, if we remember, sine of theta was opposite over hypotenuse. Opposite was y. Hypotenuse was radius. In this case, radius is 1, so it's y over 1. So we just use the y value here. The sine of 270 degrees negative 1. Same with cosine. Cosine is adjacent. It ends up being x over r. In this case, x is 1. The cosine of 270 degrees, I'm sorry, x is 0. The cosine of 270 degrees is 0. Then tangent, the opposite over adjacent, y over x. The tangent of 270 degrees, the y value over the x value, you can't divide by 0. So the tangent of 270 degrees is undefined. Now, we just flip these for the other ones. Cosecant, if you take negative or 1 and divide by negative 1, you get negative 1. Secant, I'm sorry, this should say 270. Secant of 270 degrees, we're going to take 1 and divide it by 0. Secant of 270 is undefined. And the cotangent of 270. All right, well, undefined divided by 0, or 1 divided by undefined doesn't really work. Let's just flip y over x. Flip it, get x over y. The x value is 0 divided by negative 1. 0 divided by negative 1 is 0. So we've got our three main trig functions in the unit circle. Sine is y, cosine's x, tangent is y over x. Notice the relationship there. We could probably say tangent is sine over cosine. And then cosecant, you flip sine, or 1 over y. Secant, you flip cosine, 1 over x. And cotangent, you flip tangent, y over x. So, just to kind of finish up, hit this one more time. The 6 trig functions in the unit circle, sine of the angle equals y. No matter where the angle is, the sine is the y value. Cosine of the angle is x. Cosine is the x value, no matter where it is. It could be negative, could be positive, could be 0. And finally, tangent is y over x, or sine over cosine. And if we want the other 3, you just flip the first 3. Cosecant, you flip sine, 1 over y. Secant, you flip cosine, 1 over x. And tangent is x over y, the flip of tangent. Cotangent is x over y, the flip of tangent.